In today's episode, I want to share my lessons from the mountain. I've just completed an endurance event that I that was crazy for me to say yes to, but I want to share what I've learned because there are some parallels in climbing that mountain to what we are doing in our everyday lives. So, first of all, let me set the scene. So, back in December, we'd come out of the pandemic kind of, and this was 9 months ago. And we come out of the pandemic way before then, but I hadn't really gone anywhere since the pandemic. I kind of got used to being insular, staying in. And I went on holiday with my children and we went for a little walk on a cliff in Cornwall. And I remember standing on the edge of the cliff with the views of the sea and the stone and the grass, looking out at the view, feeling the wind in my face, thinking, oh my gosh, why am I not doing more of this? And I realized that I'd been working, taking care of the kids, working, taking care of the kids, which I was really happy to be doing. But it made me realize I actually need more me time. I need time outdoors. And there was just something in that moment where I thought, right, I need this. So I also had just done a speaking course with a guy called Steve McDermott, and Steve had been teaching us all these strategies for dealing with speaking in public, which is terrifying. And he was teaching us all these different ways of smiling through it and breathing, visualization. And during his teaching, he also talked to me about, and the rest of the group, about how he had done a marathon later in life. And he was talking about how pushing through and pushing his body, and he never thought that he'd be capable of anything like that, and he'd stopped drinking, and it was just this moment of concentrating on himself and how far he could push himself as a person, and it really elevated his confidence and showed him so much about himself. So a seed was planted there in that moment too. So then fast forward just a few weeks later, it was really strange how these things were happening and seeds were being planted. And then my mentor, Stu McLaren, who I have to give a big thank you to because he's been my mentor for I don't know, for years, but I've been following him now for 5 years, 6 years even. And he's been a big influence on my life. And so I'm in his mastermind, and a mastermind is a group. It's a group we pay to be part of his mastermind because he is phenomenal. And we all learn how to put our businesses out there, to serve our customers well, to produce memberships, and that's what we focus on. And Stu, back in late December, early January, said, we've just taken part in this event called 29029. And you climb a mountain the equivalent height of Everest. So it's like doing Everest without the altitude, which I was like, oh, now that sounds interesting, because climbing Everest does not appeal to me whatsoever. And so he said, we're going to be doing it again. It's at Whistler in British Columbia. So my ears pricked up because British Columbia has been a place that I have wanted to go to for years. We did an art challenge years ago. And the art challenge was for everybody to bring a picture of where they were from. And then we would create artwork from everybody's photographs. And there were lots of places around the world that looked incredible. But the two places for me that really stood out and came to the top of my list of places to visit, British Columbia and Ireland. So British Columbia had been on my radar. So when he said it was in British Columbia, I was like, oh, that's my place. That's where I've always wanted to go. And what was interesting about this event was it's different to anything that I've come across before, in that it's an event where you have to climb a mountain, the equivalent of Everest. So in this case, the mountain was 4,000 vertical feet. For those in the UK, that's somewhere between the height of Snowdon and Ben Nevis. And it's climbing that mountain 8 times. And you have 36 hours to climb it. And the other thing they really put emphasis on is that if you don't make the 8 ascents, they break down the equivalent of what you have hiked and turn it into other mountains around each continent that are the equivalent. Like Kili, for example, I think if you climbed 5, it was the equivalent of Kilimanjaro. So there was all this emphasis on you don't have to do the 8. We're going to push you to do the 8, but you don't have to. It's about you finding your boundaries. It's about you finding how far you can push yourself in that 36 hours. And it might be doing the full 8 ascents, or it might be doing 1 or 2, and that's okay. I was like, I like the sound of this event because this is what I teach people. So there was already parallels for life in this for me. And it wasn't a race. Nobody was racing against each other. This was you against you with a load of people doing the same thing. And again, that's what I advocate in my community. We're not in a race with each other. We are all in our own lane, working at our own pace, doing our own thing. So I really liked the mission and the ethos of the event. So I was really interested. I had 24 hours to decide because this event sells out within hours. So at that point, though, it was a bit crazy for me because I have scoliosis. It's only a mild form of scoliosis, which my spine is in an S shape. But I've hidden behind that story of having scoliosis all my life. So I've hidden behind the fact that it causes me pain. Now I have hip pain because of the scoliosis. And at that point, my right hip, was in so much pain that I couldn't walk around the block. It was really uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep. So it was insane to say yes at that point when I actually couldn't physically walk more than kind of 20, 30 steps. And I was in pain. I couldn't even get out the car to do the school run. It was that bad. But I said yes. And I signed up. And I just thought, I have to do this. There was something in me. I just knew I have to do this. But it felt pretty crazy saying yes when I had never done anything like this in my life. I've never hiked, never, ever hiked. We have a hill near our house. And bearing in mind, I live next to the hill. I've climbed that hill probably, definitely I could count on one hand how many times I'd climbed it in my lifetime of living here. And I had climbed it with a friend not long before after signing up. And I was like, right, I need to get up the Reeking because I've just signed up to this thing. And I've got trainers on with no grip. I had no drink. I was just like such a novice. And I remember walking up. So I'm telling my friend I've signed up to this thing and I'm going to be climbing the Mount of Everest. And I'd trip as I'm talking. And I said, I have to just stop a minute because I can't breathe. And I'd like stop. And then I'd go again and I'd be like, I just need to stop again. And I stopped about 3 times on the way up because I was so out of breath. And I had these ridiculous trainers on. And I remember her looking at me thinking, and you've signed up to this event? She just laughed and she said, 1, you need some water. Because I was like, you need some new trainers. It was just so funny. I just remember in that moment thinking, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? Because look at me, I'm ridiculous. And I wanted to talk about that actually, because in that moment, and this is the parallel to life, sometimes you can, whatever your mountain is, and this was an extreme case for me, but your mountain could be something, the equivalent of something different, like having a solo show, could be making that first piece of art that's your own rather than copying someone. It might be selling that first piece of art because you've never sold before. So your mountain can be anything. And when you look at the parallels of what I've just learned, it's in those first stages of, you might be starting out and you don't know how to clean your brushes and you want to be an artist, but you're looking at your kit and you think, all I'm doing is working from my dining room table because I don't have a studio. I don't have the right equipment. I don't have the right brushes. I don't even know how to clean my brushes. I'm pathetic. So in that moment on the mountain, it wasn't even a mountain, it was a hill. I felt pathetic. I thought, who am I to have signed up for this? I don't even have, look at me. I can't even get up here. And it's really easy in that moment to then start to think, who am I to do this? I'm rubbish. I can't do this. I'm terrible. So that's the first lesson, is that when we embark on something out of our comfort zone, something that we strive to do, we start to take those steps. And there is a cycle, actually, and I can't remember, there's a theory on this, and I can't remember the theory. I should have looked it up before I pressed record. But basically, it's the stages of learning. And when you're learning something new, you go through these stages. And I think the first stage is you become unconsciously incompetent. So you start out and you think, oh God, right, I'm going to be an artist. To me, well, yeah, I've signed up for this hiking thing and I'm going to walk. So I phone my friend and I'm like, let's go and walk up the Wrekin. Let's do this. I'm all excited. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm walking now. Oh, I go and see the chiropractor. That was one of the first things I did, because I've been letting my back slip. I've not been getting any support or help or anything. I've been doing some stretching, but I knew I needed to sort this out, but it was down the bottom of the to-do list. That's how focused I've been on other things. I put my health down the bottom. And so the first thing I did was see a chiropractor. And I went to see the chiropractor, and we sorted my hip really quickly. Within, I think it was about 5 weeks or something. There was just some inflammation there, and we did some stretching and kneading, or the chiropractor did. I also did some particular stretching, and within about 6 weeks, I won't say the pain had completely gone, but I was able to walk. So it just showed me, when you put your mind to things, how you can fix things that might just be stopping you and getting you in your way. There could just be some small tweak that you need to do that changes everything. So that was another thing that I realized I got in my own way by saying I can't do things. I can't walk because of my hip. I can't do this because of my hip. But then I found a solution and fixed it, and then I could. So there I am, at this stage now, unconsciously incompetent, because there I am with all my rubbish gear, shoes on with no grip. I'm all excited, and you're like, "Ooh!" It might be your versions that you want to make art, and you're going to go to a class, and you've just bought a pencil, and you're all excited. And then I get out on the hill, and I'm with somebody else who can walk, and then all of a sudden I notice I don't have water like she has water. I keep tripping. I need to take a break. She doesn't. And so I then start to become consciously incompetent. And this is the stages of learning. And you might experience this too, where then you go to the art class, let's just say, for example, and you start to see other people making art, and you're like, oh my gosh, they've got all these different things in their toolbox. I haven't got these. And then someone just whizzes out this painting, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't paint like that. Or it might be selling something. So we're running a course at the moment called the 7 Keys, and I know for a fact there'll be people coming into that course looking at other people right now going, they're so much better than me, their art is really good, my art isn't as good as this. They'll be looking at people going, oh my gosh, they've just done the first lesson and they've got a big result already. I don't have that result. So it happens in everything that we do when we're pushing ourselves to the next level. We then become consciously incompetent, the stage where we realize, oh my gosh, I'm going ahead here, but I don't have the tools, I don't have the skill, I'm not ready for this. So we are aware. And then what happens, this is the point that a lot of people stop. A lot of people become intimidated. They cancel the course. They cancel the exhibition. They stop going to the art class. They pull out of the mountain because they think, actually, I'm not good enough for this. Change my mind. The amount of people that cancelled and withdrew their application for the mountain was really, really high, because people freak out. But if you keep going at that point, and you start to ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to now go and invest? What do I need to learn? And that's what I started to do to equip myself for the mountain. I thought, I've got a lot to learn here. I'm starting from zero. So I had to put in the time to learn about the kit that I need, and how do I actually hike properly, and what do I do? And then I went and got myself this bladder that sits on my back, so I have a drink all the time. And I was asking friends who like to hike, what do you do? What's your thing that you carry? What can you recommend? I was messaging everyone. asking people, what do you do? What do you recommend if I was doing this event? And I ended up hiking every month, and I purposefully booked a planned, organized event. One, because I didn't have the confidence to hike because I've never done it before. Two, I wanted to meet guides who know about hiking so that I could ask them questions. So every single hike, I was the person at the front, not straight away because I thought I don't want to just jump on people, but I would, into the hike, I go, oh, by the way, what's your tips on I'm doing this endurance event? Tell me what kit you'd use. How would you approach it? Would you go all in? Would you rest? And I was asking every single person how they would handle what I was doing. So I was starting to gather. And then what happens when you start to learn is then you can't become unconsciously competent. So you still feel like you're rubbish, but actually you're learning more than you realize. You're starting to pick things up from people. You've bought your bladder, you've got something to drink from. When you compare yourself to the first day you stepped on that hill where you were tripping, you didn't have your water, you felt incompetent, you were rubbish, to now where you are, but you can't see it yet, you're still down on yourself. There's that stage where it's called the unconscious competence. Then what happens is someone will compliment you and say, oh, I've noticed a difference in you. Or something will happen where you'll notice it yourself and go, oh, wow, I have made progress. Someone will, I don't know, comment on your art or comment on my boots and say, good boots. Or, oh, I see you've got something to drink from. Brilliant. And then you acknowledge and go, yeah. So then the next stage is consciously competent. You are growing competence in what you want to achieve. So there's this parallel. And so it's really important to notice this, because there are times where you want to give up when you're feeling incompetent, and you shouldn't. So so as I was going through training, then I started to grow, more strength and more. I was climbing the Wrekin more. It became my friend. I learned so much about that process, which again is something to learn. So when we have a big goal, it's really easy to look at that big goal as the ultimate end. I could have easily just thought to myself, right, getting to those 8 ascents is all I'm bothered about. I just want to climb that mountain 8 times. And this is, again, a parallel for goals in life, because some people get so hung up on, I want this house, or I want to earn this amount of money. I want to sell this amount of art. I have to have this. Nothing else matters. This is all that is important to me. We can get fixated on the things, the outcome, the final thing, and derail ourselves with our happiness or our success depending on that, and fixating on that completely, where we're now not enjoying the journey. And the journey of arriving somewhere is, I would say, more important than the destination. That's just my view. So I know this. So I knew that the journey, the training, the learning is enriching, is exciting. And I reveled in every single hike that I did. I took time to be mindful. This is something I've never done before. I would take time to go hiking by myself. I've never done that in my life. I'd never even go for a walk by myself. If I went for a walk, it would be with other people. I never took time to just go for a walk. And I started to walk. Some days I was walking for 5 hours by myself towards the end when the training picked up. I would never have done that. I was scared to do that. I didn't want to be with my own thoughts. And there were times where it was a struggle. I had to be out for 5 hours by myself. And there were days where I'd lose my mind on that hill, and I'd be thinking, thinking all sorts of things. And I had to learn to be with my own thoughts and how to take control of my brain. There were days where I lost it out there, where I got scared. So all of this, some of it pleasant, some of it unpleasant, was learning. Was the most amazing, incredible journey where I'm learning more about myself. And I was learning how to be with myself, be with my thoughts. I was taking every step and looking at my boots and paying attention to the wildlife. And I saw snakes, and I saw deer and birds of prey. And I took time to notice that, which I never, ever, ever did before, as often as I was doing in this moment. And I was really reveling in the hard times, the good times. There was one day I went hiking, and I have to admit, I would check the weather forecast and I would only go hiking if it was nice. There were baby steps because I wanted to enjoy it. I knew I wanted to enjoy it. But then I knew that there was going to be a chance on this mountain when we do this event. It's going to be dark. It's going to be raining. We're probably going to see all seasons in the 36 hours that we do this event. And so, but still, I didn't really push myself to do anything in the rain, but I did do a night hike. So I knew that I'm going to have to hike in the dark. So I signed up to do an event, and I did the solstice sunrise, and I climbed Snowdon during the night at 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh my gosh, it was the most amazing experience because we had a clear sky, and two hours of the night were complete darkness. And I've never seen the sky so beautiful since I don't know when. The stars were so clear, there were so many stars. And it was strange because there was only 2 hours of complete darkness, and then the rest of the time there was this really beautiful ambient light. I had no idea that the night was like that because I have children. I don't go out in the night. Or if I'm on my own and I don't have the children, I don't go anywhere. I just, get the house done, sit on the sofa. So I was doing all these things that I wouldn't usually. And there was another another experience where my friend and I, Victoria, went hiking, and she'd never really been hiking before. So I was like, oh, come with me. And we went to do one of the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and the weather forecast was great. Even the guide said, we're going to have a good day today. And so we didn't have our waterproofs, which is a big lesson now I've learned. Take everything anyway. Do not rely on the weather because the mountain has its own weather. We can plan for things. You make the plan and it can just go out the window. And this again is the same for life. We can plan how we're going to do that exhibition. We can plan how we're going to end up making that first piece of artwork. We can plan how we're going to actually make a living. We can make the plan, and the chances are it will change. Something is going to happen. So this was really good lessons for me too, going through this, because we made a plan that day to go and hike. It was going to be nice. I wore my brand new non-waterproof trainers to go and test them out because I never worn them on a hike before. I'd worn them a little bit to break in, but I wanted to test them out on a mountain. So I had non-waterproof trainers on, no waterproof coat. Oh my gosh, we got to the top of the peak and it was like we just traveled into a different time, country and climate. It was treacherous, dark, sleet, rain. Oh, it was cold, windy. It was horrid. And we we had another 4 hours to go in this. It was brutal. And I remember it just started spitting with, I don't know if you use that term, but it's just tiny little bits of rain. And we were laughing at the guide, my friend and I, because he was getting all his kit on, and we were like, oh, it's only a bit of rain, we'll be fine. He obviously saw what was coming, and then he was the one laughing at us because we didn't have any stuff with us. So we were squelching at my brand new trainers. I was looking down, and every time I took a footstep, the rain was just coming through the top of them. I was so cold that the rain was just dripping off my gloves and my hands were frozen. And we went into this weird trance where we were just walking, and it was like survival. I know this sounds really extreme, but it was really crazy. We were cold to the bone. And we were just walking. And then we came out of it after 4 hours of walking in that. And we were like, what just actually happened? It was like we just came out of this strange dream. But in hindsight now, I'd been avoiding situations like that. But it was really good for me to go through. And the same can be said for life and our goals. We can go to an exhibition and not sell a thing, and it's soul destroying. But it's teaching us so much. It's teaching us resilience. It's teaching us that not everything is going to work out. It's teaching us how to be disappointed. We have to feel this. We are not going to escape disappointment in our lifetime. Not everything is going to go our way. Not everything is going to be right. You are going to make mistakes. You need to make mistakes. You need to learn how to be disappointed. This was a great talk that we had when we were doing the hike the night before. One of the speakers, Jessie Itzler, said, it's a shame today in schools we're teaching children that it doesn't matter what you partake in sports, you're going to get an award. We're so protecting them from feeling left out or feeling disappointed. And actually, we should be teaching them how to feel disappointment. Because if you go into the real world not being able to handle disappointment, you are going to have a hard life. And that's what we're seeing today is people can't handle rejection or disappointment. And it's a big skill we need to develop. So just like I got caught in the rain that day and I felt the cold, I learned a lot. I learned that I need waterproof gloves. I learned that I need to take things everywhere, even if it says it's not going to rain. And these parts that are not enjoyable, is inevitable. I'm never going to be able to just hike and enjoy every single hike. And actually, I learned that's not what it's about. It's about getting out there and feeling the rain and feeling the pain. And that was a big lesson. And just like when you embark on your journey, people try and get it perfect. And I see this, people question me and say, should I do it this way? Am I putting too much pressure on myself doing it like this? And the answer is you've got to just do it, and you've got to make mistakes. You'll have that exhibition and you'll get things wrong. You'll pull the work together and you might not have everything. You might forget your labels. You might forget to actually tell people it's on. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes, because you're going to learn for next time. You'll make that mistake and you won't make it again. So it's really important to learn and be open to that and learn how to react to things that are not going to plan. Some of the other things that I learn, I'm just checking my list now. One thing that I've learned as well is this pain is temporary. So when I've been training, it's been really interesting for me, because I've been training and I'd be, doing kind of like a long journey. And then all of a sudden my toe would hurt, like one of my toes. And it felt like I had an ingrown toenail. It's a bit gross. But I didn't. And I've like, sorted my toes up. But it was just this excruciating pain in my toe. And there's been certain points when I've been hiking where I've been thinking, I can't carry on like this. This is too painful. But then I'm on a mountain and I can't just stop. I'm on my own. I've got to get back down to the bottom. So I've got to keep going. There's been no choice. Take me off that mountain and put me somewhere where I could have easily escaped. I would have just stopped and given up in that moment. But I didn't. I carried on because I had no choice. And when I carried on, I realized after about 30 minutes that the pain was no longer. Either the pain had gone, or I was distracted and I was focusing on something else and I didn't realize that I was in pain anymore. This was a big lesson to me, especially when I was on the mountain on the day doing the endurance event. And it was a big lesson that I taught other people when I was helping people up the mountain as well, because I gave everyone as much support as I possibly could on that mountain. And there was one guy I was with, Marius, and he did 4 ascents, and then towards the end of that 4th one, I could see he was looking washed out, and he sat on a bench and he said, I need to wait. And I said, okay. So we waited, and we'd only got a little bit to go, and I was like, come on, push to the next aid station. So we pushed to the next aid station, and he gets there and he says, I can't do this. I'm quitting now. He said, I feel really sick. I'm just going to lie on the floor here. You go without me. I'm going to stop. And I said, okay, you go and lie down. I'm going to find a solution. So I went and spoke to the people at the aid station and I said, do you have something to help my friend? He feels sick. And they got him some Alka-Seltzer. He sipped on the Alka-Seltzer, and then I knelt down and I said, one thing I've learned from my training is that whatever we're experiencing right now usually is temporary, unless it's something major and it's something that I don't know, like we've broken a bone or something. But usually, whatever it is temporary. So feeling sick, a pain in your toe, pain in your hip, something that's hurting, it's going to go away. We can either find a solution or we need to stop at the next ascent. If it's a pain in my hip, which I did have, it's time to stop, do some stretching, slow down, stretch it out, put my legs up. And the same for Marius. So, I said to Marius, you just need to slow down now, have this drink and wait for this to pass. You're not going to feel sick for the rest of the 36 hours. And you can keep going. You can do this. Anyway, so he had the drink, the nausea passed, we gave him something to eat, and he kept going. But it was just so interesting because I saw this happening a lot on the mountain, where people would have something that was really really uncomfortable and causing discomfort in that moment. And they would then think to themselves, oh my gosh, I can't carry on with this. I can't do this. This is it. I'm stopping. And I had moments like that. On number 5, my hip was really hurting me. All of a sudden, out of the blue, I was like, oh, great. So then I was thinking, if it's going to be like this for the rest of the hike, this is going to be unbearable. But actually, it passed. It was hurting. I did the stretching. I went off, put my legs in the air. I had a rest, and the hip pain completely went. I didn't feel it again until, well, never. So that was a big lesson as well, that pain is temporary, inevitable, and temporary. There was a great quote by Jesse Itzler that says, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And one of the guys who did it in the fastest time, I spoke with him at dinner and I said, did you not, he did it really quickly. He didn't stop. He didn't sleep. I think he did it in 16 hours. And I said, did you not feel pain? And he said, yeah, it hurt a lot. He said, but I didn't give the pain power. He said, when you start to give the pain power and you concentrate on, oh my God, my hip's hurting. He said, it will hurt even more. He said, so when you're feeling the pain, it's time to distract yourself. Find a spot on the mountain that you can focus on. Breathe through the pain. Tell yourself it's not hurting. I'm not in pain. I'm not in pain. I'm not in pain. Keep going. Take another step. Take another step. And so this again is a parallel for us achieving our goals and going through life, of when we feel it's uncomfortable. Something hurts us. We get rejected. It hurts. But it's temporary. We're not going to feel that hurt forever. It's a little tiny moment in our lives that we're going to come out the other side, and we won't even care that we were rejected in about a week's time. It just won't even matter. And so these things, this pain of us achieving our goals and getting things wrong, and it's inevitable. We are going to feel that. We're going to feel that discomfort, but it's temporary. And knowing that is really great, because sometimes we think that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in this situation forever. No, you're not. It's temporary. And there's always a solution. We can find a solution, or you're going to move past it. And in a week or on your deathbed, you will not remember that moment. You won't. It's not actually significant or important in the grand scheme of your life. So that was another big lesson. For me, I was really talking to myself about, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. The language that we use is important. For those people that kept going up the mountain saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, guess what? They pulled out, they quit. So I really made it an effort I never said anything about not being able to do it ever at any point. Even when it got hard, I still kept saying, I know I can do this. I don't know how, but I know I can do it. There was never one point in the whole event where I said, I can't do this. Just would not entertain it. I would not say it. I didn't complain once. I just noticed things and said, I have a pain in my hip. I need to sort this out. But whilst I was hiking, it hurt like crazy. I did not complain. I didn't bring any awareness to it. So this was a big thing, visualization. I visualized myself doing that hike and completing way before the event, 9 months before. The actual finishing line was exactly like I imagined it, except in my visualization, I collapsed on the floor and I go, oh, I wasn't that dramatic, but I cried and I went through, and it was just as I imagined. I literally thought, I've been visualizing this. The other thing was, they put little stopways all the way. So if you think about, I have to climb 8, it's intimidating. Like a goal can be intimidating. If you focus on the big thing, it is scary. If you break it down, which is what we were doing, we were focusing on the next step. And then they put these aid stations in place to break up each ascent into 4. So all we had to do in our heads was get to the next aid station. And before we get to the aid station, they'd put signs to say, you're nearly at the aid station. So we would get excited going, oh, we're nearly there. This is so exciting. But we still had a bit of a way to go. But we had an increase in motivation because we saw the sign. And so they were planting all these things to break up the journey, to reward us. There'd be people with cowbells when they saw us coming, and they'd be cheering for us. And it was so amazing. Again, though, this is so important in life, to reward yourself, to break down your tasks into tiny steps. Reward yourself when you get there. cheer yourself on and recognize I've just taken that next step. Don't focus on the big 8 ascents that you have to do. You're breaking down this goal to the tiniest next step, and then you take another step and another step, and before you know it, in 36 hours you've climbed the height of Everest, which I cannot believe I'm sat here saying. It's insane. So yeah, that's it. I've said everything. What I've learned from this is, if you put your mind to it, if you focus like the red car, if you focus, where focus goes, energy flows. If you focus on something and you want it, you will find a way of doing it. If you keep chipping away, carving out that time. I carved out in the end sometimes 20 hours a week to train. If they'd have told me that at the beginning, that I'd have had to have found 20 hours a week, there's no way I would have signed up. No way. But I did, and I found the time. It's blown my mind. We all think we don't have time. We do. If you get really focused on what it is and you find that time, you get up a bit earlier, you jiggle things around, you stop doing certain things. If something is important enough to you, you will find a way, and you can do amazing, incredible things that you never dreamed of. I know for a fact. You don't have to climb what I did to realize that or to learn that. Find your own Everest, find what it is, and know that you can do this. I believe in you. You can do it. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to everyone who cheered me along, who supported me. I really appreciate every single one of you. It's been the most amazing journey. And to have you there pushing me up and giving me that energy was phenomenal. It's something that I'll never forget and cherish forever. So thank you, everyone. And I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.